Laura Bush. November 6th, 1963. A dark, moonless night in Midland, Texas. We're at a rural intersection, nothing but dust and the faint glow of distant oil rigs. A 17-year-old girl, a popular cheerleader named Laura Welch, is driving her father's Chevrolet sedan. She has a friend with her, Judy Dykes. They're rushing to make a show at the local drive-in, chatting, laughing, just a normal teenage night. But this intersection is tricky. It's poorly lit. The stop sign for Laura's direction is easy to miss if you're not paying attention. And tonight, she isn't. The police report would later state she ran the stop sign. It also noted she was doing about 50 miles an hour, just under the limit, on a dry road with clear visibility. She wasn't speeding, not really, but she was going too fast to stop in time. In that other car is Michael Douglas. He has the right of way. He doesn't see her coming until it's too late. Laura's sedan T-bones Michael's Corvair, hitting it square on the driver's side. The force of the impact is so violent that all three teenagers are thrown from their cars, their bodies carried by sheer momentum into the West Texas dirt. The impact is brutal. Michael's car is thrown off the road. He suffers a catastrophic head injury. By the time help arrives, there's nothing anyone can do. He's pronounced dead that night, before he ever reaches Midland Memorial Hospital. Laura and her friends survive with minor injuries. No charges are ever filed. It's ruled a tragic accident. But for Laura Welch, who would one day become First Lady Laura Bush, it was a moment that would haunt her for the rest of her life. In her memoirs, she wrote about the overwhelming guilt, a private pain she carried for decades, born on a dark Texas road at an intersection marked by a single, lonely stop sign. Rebecca Gayheart. It's June 13th, 2001, a sunny afternoon in Hollywood. Traffic is backed up. In the middle of the street, 9-year-old Jorge Cruz Jr. is trying to get home. The cars in the two inner lanes have stopped, waving him across. He's a kid. He trusts them. He starts to walk. But in the far lane, a Jeep Grand Cherokee is coming. The driver is actress Rebecca Gayheart, the Noxzema girl. It's not even her car. It belongs to a friend, actor Marco Leonardi, a big SUV with high sightlines and thick pillars. She can't see the boy because of the stopped cars. Instead of slowing down, she steers around the traffic, accelerating into the open lane. The exact lane Jorge is now stepping into. There's no time to react. The Jeep hits him. Witnesses said he was thrown onto the hood before falling to the ground. He was rushed to the hospital, but he died the next day from his injuries. Rebecca Gayheart pleaded no contest to misdemeanor vehicular manslaughter. Her sentence? Probation, community service, a 1-year license suspension. Her career, once bright, fizzled out. She later said she was distracted, but the image remains, a child given permission to cross by a line of patient drivers, killed by the one who wasn't. Phil Spector. February 3rd, 2003. The early morning hours. We're at the Pyrenees Castle, the bizarre Gothic mansion of legendary music producer Phil Spector. Spector, a man as famous for his genius in the studio as for his paranoia and love of guns, has brought a woman home. Her name is Lana Clarkson, a 40-year-old actress he met just hours before at the House of Blues where she worked. They'd been drinking. Heavily. Inside the castle, what happened next is a blur of alcohol and rage. But we know this. A single shot rings out. Spector's chauffeur, waiting outside, sees his boss emerge from the house. In his hand is a .38 caliber revolver. Spector looks at him and says the 5 words that would define the rest of his life. "I think I killed somebody." D'Souza looks inside. Lana Clarkson is slumped in a white chair in the foyer. There's a single gunshot wound in her mouth. Blood is everywhere. Spector would later claim she kissed the gun and it went off by accident. But the evidence, the blood spatter on his own coat, told a different story. What followed was a legal war that dragged on for years. Prosecutors didn't just argue that Lana Clarkson hadn't killed herself. They painted a pattern. One by one, other women took the stand to say the same thing. When Phil Spector was drunk and a woman tried to leave, The gun came out. He pressed a gun to my head. He said he was going to blow my brains out. It was the same story, over and over again. The defense pushed a different narrative. Lana was unstable and desperate. They said there wasn't enough blood and gunshot residue on his white jacket for him to have pulled the trigger at close range, and that the small spatters the jury saw could have come from being nearby when she shot herself. But the jury didn't buy it. In April 2009, after a first trial had ended in deadlock, a second jury found Phil Spector guilty of second-degree murder and of using a firearm in the commission of a crime. A month later, the judge sentenced him to 19 years to life in a California state prison, effectively a life sentence for a man in his late 60s. Spector would die there in 2021. Vince Neil, December 8th, 1984. We're at a party at the Redondo Beach home of Motley Crue frontman Vince Neil. It's a 5-day bender. The house is trashed. Everyone is drunk. They run out of booze. So Vince and his friend, Nicholas Razzle Dingley, the drummer for the band Hanoi Rocks, decide to make a liquor run to a store just a few blocks away. Their car of choice? Vince's bright yellow Di Tommaso Pantera. There's no back seat, so Razzle climbs in with hundreds of dollars worth of alcohol piled in his lap. Vince is behind the wheel, in his Hawaiian shirt and shorts, Razzle in leather pants and a frilly shirt. His blood alcohol level is 0.17, nearly twice the legal limit. They actually make it to the liquor store and back out onto the road without incident. But on the way home, as dusk turns to darkness, Vince floors it. The Pantera screams through the residential streets at around 65 miles per hour in a 25 zone. The pavement is slick, a wet patch on the road. As they come around a curve and swerve to avoid a parked fire truck, the rear of the Pantera breaks loose. The low-slung sports car slides sideways into the oncoming lane. Coming the other way is a white Volkswagen, driven by 20-year-old Daniel Smithers, with 18-year-old Lisa Hogan in the passenger seat. They have no time to react. The Volkswagen plows into the passenger side of the Pantera, exactly where Razzle is sitting, clutching all that booze. The collision is devastating. Glass bottles explode, liquor sprays through the cabin. The impact slams Razzle sideways into Vince's lap. Inside, it's chaos. Broken glass, twisted metal. Razzle is rushed to South Bay Hospital, but the head trauma is too severe. He's pronounced dead at 7:12 p.m. that evening. Daniel Smithers and Lisa Hogan survive, but both suffer severe head injuries and permanent brain damage. Vince Neil walks away with cracked ribs and cuts to his face, and the knowledge that he was doing 65 in a 25 with a blood alcohol level of 0.17. He's charged with DUI and vehicular manslaughter. On advice of his lawyers, he pleads guilty. The maximum he faces is years in state prison. Instead, he's sentenced to 30 days in jail, 5 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and ordered to pay $2.6 million in restitution. He serves just 15 days of that 30-day sentence before being released for good behavior. For killing his friend and crippling 2 others, Vince Neil spent barely over 2 weeks behind bars. A sentence so lenient that people in Redondo Beach still point to it as a textbook example of celebrity justice. Sid Vicious. October 12, 1978. Room 100 of the infamous Chelsea Hotel in New York City. This is the home of Sex Pistols bassist Sid Vicious and his girlfriend, Nancy Spungen. Their life is a toxic cocktail of heroin, violence, and codependency. The night before, they'd been arguing, shooting up. Sid, according to his own hazy memory, had taken so many Tuinal, a powerful barbiturate, that he'd passed out. Sometime in the early morning, Nancy is found dead on the bathroom floor. She has a single stab wound to her abdomen. The weapon, a Jaguar folding knife that Sid had bought for her, is found in the room. Sid is arrested, charged with her murder. He mumbles to the police, "I did it because I'm a dirty dog." But he can't remember anything. He's released on bail, a ghost haunted by what he may or may not have done. 4 months later, before he can stand trial, Sid Vicious dies of a heroin overdose. And this is where the story gets even darker. Sid's mother, Ann Beverly, was a longtime heroin addict herself. She'd been supplying him with drugs for years. Several accounts claim that on the night he died, she was the one who scored, and possibly even injected, the final, ultra-pure dose that killed him. Some call it an accident. Others whisper it was a mercy killing, a mother honoring her son's death pact with Nancy so he could join her. We'll never know. Anne died in 1996, and with her went one of the last chances to know what really happened in that room. Oscar Pistorius. Valentine's Day, 2013. Inside a secured home in Pretoria, South Africa, Paralympic superstar Oscar Pistorius, the Blade Runner, is with his girlfriend, model Riva Steenkamp. In the middle of the night, Pistorius wakes up. He hears a noise from the bathroom. Believing it's an intruder, he grabs his 9mm pistol. He creeps towards the bathroom door, shouting for the intruder to get out, and for Riva, who he thinks is still in bed, to call the police. He reaches the small enclosed toilet cubicle. He hears another sound, and he opens fire. 4 shots, fired at chest height through the locked wooden door. Inside, Riva is struck in the head, hip, and arm. Pistorius breaks the door down with a cricket bat. He finds her, bleeding to death. He carries her downstairs, but it's too late. He drags her out of the cubicle into the larger bathroom, trying to clear her airway, then lifts her in his arms, a dead weight, leaving a trail of blood on the floor and along the walls as he carries her downstairs. Neighbors hear screams. At the bottom of the stairs, he lays her out and tries to resuscitate her. By the time paramedics arrive, there is nothing they can do. Riva Steenkamp is pronounced dead. In 2014, after a globally televised trial, the judge initially found him guilty not of murder, but of culpable homicide, the South African version of manslaughter, and sentenced him to 5 years in prison. He was released to house arrest at his uncle's mansion after about a year, but the story didn't end there. On appeal, a higher court ruled that firing 4 shots through a locked door at chest height was legally murder, and his conviction was upgraded. His sentence was eventually increased to 13 years and 5 months. A decade after Riva's death, the final twist quietly arrived. In January 2024, after serving almost 9 years behind bars, Oscar Pistorius was released on parole to live under strict community supervision in Pretoria, barred from alcohol, under curfew, and forbidden from speaking to the media while he serves out the rest of his sentence in the community. Suge Knight. January 29th, 2015. The parking lot of Tam's Burgers in Compton. Former Death Row Records CEO Suge Knight, a man with a long and violent history, is behind the wheel of his massive Ford Raptor truck. He's just had an argument on the nearby set of the NWA movie Straight Outta Compton. 2 men approach his truck, Clee Bone Sloan, a security consultant, and Terry Carter, a local businessman. Sloan and Knight start arguing. It gets heated. Sloan throws a punch. And then Suge Knight snaps. He slams the truck into reverse, knocking Sloan to the ground. Then he shifts to drive and floors it. The huge truck plows forward, running over Sloan again, and then directly over Terry Carter, who is crushed under the wheels. Knight doesn't stop. He speeds out of the parking lot and flees. Terry Carter dies from his injuries. The entire brutal incident is captured on a security camera. Knight claimed it was self-defense, that the men were armed and he feared for his life. The video told a different story. In the end, Suge Knight, the man who once ruled hip-hop with an iron fist, pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter and was sentenced to 28 years in prison.